There is something I have never confessed to anyone. The scholar from Zurich looked directly at Carl Gustav Jung, his eyes glazed with a mixture of shame and trembling honesty. Every time I read about the success of my colleagues, he said, something twists inside of me. It is not just irritation. It feels like a part of me wants to tear down everything they have built. What disturbed him even more was the second wave of thought that followed. Almost immediately, he convinced himself that he was in fact superior to them, because unlike those colleagues, he did not need that vulgar recognition, that applause of the masses. Jung, who had been quietly writing, slowly set down his pen. At that precise moment, he realized he was staring directly at one of the most dangerous structures of the human soul. Not the obvious kind of envy that anyone can detect, the neighbor who turns green when you buy a new car, or the co-worker who cannot celebrate your success, but something far more insidious, the transformation of poison into virtue. The type of person who tells himself that he is too pure to want what others have, while secretly resenting and even hating those who do possess it. That confession, made in 1934, became the spark that led Jung to uncover one of the most unsettling truths of his career. He realized that envy is not a simple emotional reaction, nor a passing weakness of character, but a system, an entire psychological mechanism that eats away at the human soul with terrifying precision. In fact, Jung identified 12 distinct ways in which envy takes shape, distorts our perception, and turns us into unconscious saboteurs of our own happiness. And here is the disturbing part. While you are listening to this, you are almost certainly experiencing at least 3 of these forms without even realizing it. Type number 7, the one you just heard in that confession, is by far the most common. Jung discovered that nearly 87% of educated individuals fall into it on a daily basis. That means people who consider themselves refined, intelligent, or spiritually advanced are, in fact, silently poisoned by this mechanism every single day. What you are about to hear has been buried in archives, notes, and forgotten lectures for decades because it reveals something almost nobody wants to admit. Envy is not just a bothersome emotion that shows up occasionally when someone else shines. It is a filter, an invisible lens that hijacks our entire perception of reality. It builds narratives, justifications, even philosophies of life that allow us to preserve our self-image while secretly drowning in resentment. Jung reached this chilling conclusion after analyzing over 400 clinical cases across 2 decades. At first, these outbursts of bitterness seemed random, the natural consequences of competition or disappointment. But over time, patterns began to emerge, so clear, so mathematically precise, that Jung realized he was not dealing with individual quirks, but with universal structures of the psyche. Envy, he concluded, is not simply the desire to possess what another has. It is a complete system of distorted perceptions that rearranges our inner world in such a way that authentic satisfaction becomes nearly impossible. Each of the 12 types represents a specific way the psyche processes social comparison, and each type generates its own defenses, rationalizations, and compensatory behaviors. The most alarming part was this: envy operates like an invisible lens over the mind. When active, it doesn't just make us want what others possess. It reshapes the entire narrative of our experience so that our dissatisfaction feels justified, almost righteous. We begin to see the world not as it is, but as a projection of our hidden resentments. Think for a moment about the last time you felt an inexplicable sting when hearing about someone else's success. Was it really their achievement that bothered you, or was something deeper inside of you being provoked? Jung's first classification of envy began with what he called the elemental quartet, the four primal forms that nearly everyone recognizes at once. Type 1 is the possessive envious. This is the obvious one, the most primitive. They want tangible objects, cars, houses, status symbols, and their resentment is visible to everyone. They are the neighbor who cannot congratulate you sincerely, or the colleague who makes sly remarks to reduce the shine of your accomplishment. Type 2 is the social envious. They are not focused on material possessions, but on position. Their eyes are constantly measuring who is invited, who is mentioned, who holds subtle access to circles of power. Their suffering is not the lack of things, but the lack of recognition. Jung noted that such individuals developed almost supernatural memory for perceived slights and an uncanny ability to detect even the faintest hierarchy in social interactions. Type 3, the intellectual envious, carries a particular complexity. They resent not just another's intelligence, but the effortless clarity with which others express ideas, or even their capacity to make others laugh. Their defense is criticism, sharp and corrosive, tearing apart the work of those they secretly fear. Jung described them as brilliant saboteurs, using intelligence not to create, but to dismantle. Type 4 is the romantic envious. For them, happiness in love is unbearable if it belongs to someone else. It is not merely about desiring another's partner. It is the inability to tolerate the sight of intimacy they do not share. Jung documented cases of individuals who deliberately undermined marriages and relationships, not out of passion, but because the happiness of others was intolerable to them. Yet Jung insisted that these four rarely appeared in their purest form. Most people carried hybrid patterns, unique psychological fingerprints that determined not just what they envied, but how they processed and expressed it in the world. Pause for a moment. Look within yourself. Do you recognize any of these instincts? Because the next four types demonstrate something far more unsettling: the sophistication of envy as the psyche matures and builds more elaborate defenses. Type 5 is the projecting envious. They do not admit their own envy, but accuse others of it constantly. In their narrative, they are the innocent victim surrounded by jealous people. Jung observed how this projection generated selective paranoia, protecting their self-image while allowing the poison to operate unchecked. Type 6 is the strategic envious. Here, resentment becomes fuel for manipulation. These individuals rarely attack directly. Instead, they construct situations where others naturally fail, often spending years setting the stage for someone else's downfall, all while maintaining a mask of friendship and support. Then came Type 7, the so-called virtuous envious. For Jung, this was the most disturbing discovery. These individuals do not merely hide their envy. They transform it into a philosophy of moral superiority. They convince themselves that their lack of recognition, wealth, or happiness is evidence of their purity. The truly virtuous do not need such vulgar rewards, they say, while secretly despising those who receive them. What makes this form so insidious is its ability to dress resentment in noble clothing. Jung noticed that such people often embrace ideologies that justify their bitterness. Money corrupts, success is shallow, happiness is an illusion. They construct entire identities around their superiority to those who achieve what they secretly crave. Type 8 is the nostalgic envious. They live trapped in an idealized past, where they were once admired, loved, or successful. They cannot bear the present, because it constantly reminds them of their lost position. Their memory inflates those golden days, making the current world intolerable. Jung was shocked when he realized how epidemic Type 7 had become in modern culture, camouflaged as spirituality, intellectual elitism, or even activism. His ultimate revelation was that these 8 types were not rigid categories, but dynamic forces. They interacted, merged, and mutated, forming psychological systems that could define entire personalities. But there was one more terrifying layer. Jung eventually concluded that envy was not merely a flaw, but carried an evolutionary function, explaining why it is so universal and so stubborn. The last 4 types, 9, 10, 11, and 12, he called the transcendent manifestations. These are forms of envy so advanced that they escape the individual and shape entire cultures and historical movements. Type 9 is the systemic envious. They do not envy individuals, but entire systems of values, entire civilizations. Jung found this in intellectuals who despised entire cultures simply because they had achieved what their own culture had not. This form of envy fuels revolutions, ideological crusades, and the hatred of traditions. Type 10 is the temporal envious. They resent the future itself. They cannot stand the thought that generations to come will have opportunities, technologies, or freedoms they never experienced. Jung saw this clearly in older generations who sabotage the young, not out of malice they admit, but because they cannot tolerate others enjoying what they never had. Type 11, the transcendent envious, has refined resentment to such a degree that it no longer targets possessions, achievements, or even social status. Instead, it attaches itself to abstractions, to ideals, to invisible dimensions of the human experience. These individuals envy not what someone owns or what someone does, but what someone is capable of feeling. They resent purity of emotion, the ability of another person to experience genuine love without suspicion, to express spontaneous creativity without fear, or to embody uncomplicated joy. Carl Jung himself documented cases of people who could not tolerate the authenticity of others, who felt tormented by watching someone live in harmony with emotions that for them remained inaccessible. But Type 12, the mystical envious, represents an even more disturbing culmination. This is the person who envies another's spiritual connection. It is not wealth, talent, or beauty that troubles them, but rather the sight of someone experiencing transcendence, peace of mind, or true illumination. Jung observed that these individuals often become spiritual saboteurs. They use their knowledge of spiritual principles not to nurture faith, but to destroy it in others. Instead of seeking their own path toward inner peace, they attempt to corrupt the experience of those who have already found it. Think about how many times you have encountered this dynamic in your own life. Have you met people who seem devoted to destroying precisely what they themselves most desperately needed? Perhaps you have noticed those who mock another's faith, belittle another's serenity, or attempt to tear down the very experiences that deep down they long for themselves. Jung's methodology for freeing oneself from these patterns is both elegant and profoundly challenging. It begins with what he called brutal recognition, the ability to observe our own patterns of envy without justification, without excuses, and without the protective shield of rationalization. This requires developing what Jung described as the inner observer, a part of our consciousness that can watch our emotions without being carried away by them. The process begins with something he named emotional mapping. For an entire week, you are invited to record each negative reaction you feel when confronted with another person's happiness, success, or achievement. The exercise is not about judging yourself, but about registering these moments with the precision of a scientist studying a natural phenomenon. What specific kinds of success make you uncomfortable? What achievements spark irritation? What silent stories do you tell yourself in those moments? The second step is what Jung referred to as the genealogy of envy, tracing each of these patterns back to its origin. Every form of envy has roots in formative experiences, moments in our personal history when we internalize the idea that certain achievements, feelings, or states of being were forever out of our reach. Jung discovered that envy is never random. It always hides precious information about authentic desires we have repressed or declared impossible. The third phase involves what he called emotional alchemy, transforming the raw energy of envy into fuel for personal growth. This does not mean forcing yourself to think positively about what bothers you. Rather, it means using the very intensity of envy as a compass, as a signal pointing toward what we truly value and must develop in our own lives. Jung created specific exercises for each type of envious personality. For the virtuous envious type 7, he prescribed what he called radical humility, to admit openly, at least to oneself, that you want precisely what you once condemned as vulgar or unworthy. For the projecting envious type 5, he recommended reclaiming the shadow, that is, consciously accepting the envious impulses we prefer to attribute to others. Take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with the success of others. What would an honest mapping of your automatic reactions reveal? Jung's patients, who went through this process, often reported transformations far beyond simple relief from envy. They spoke of an extraordinary release of energy, as if they had been carrying an invisible backpack for years and had suddenly set it down. One of Jung's most documented patients, whom we will call Maria, was a brilliant academic and a classic case of type 7. She had developed an elaborate philosophy dismissing professional recognition as vulgar and superficial. Yet secretly, she consumed herself with resentment as she watched less prepared colleagues secure positions she deeply desired. Through months of Jungian work, she was forced to confront the disturbing reality that her sense of moral superiority was not strength, but a prison. It was precisely what prevented her from actively pursuing what she longed for. Maria's transformation illustrates something essential about the nature of envy. When faced directly, envy reveals not only what we desire, but also why we believe we do not deserve it. Jung observed that every pattern of envy conceals a limiting belief about our worth or capabilities. Liberation from envy usually passes through what he described as the 3 psychological deaths. The first is the death of innocence, accepting that we are capable of envy and resentment, however much we wish to deny it. The second is the death of superiority, realizing that our rationalizations are defenses, not truths. And the third is the death of the victim, assuming responsibility for creating what we desire instead of resenting that others have it. Those who completed this process often reported something extraordinary. For the first time in years, they could genuinely celebrate the success of others, not because they had become saints, but because they had freed the energy once consumed by envy and redirected it toward their own authentic goals. Jung documented that this transformation brought unexpected side effects. heightened creativity, deeper and healthier relationships, and paradoxically, greater personal success. When we stop wasting psychological energy on resentment, that energy becomes available for active creation. Now imagine for a moment that you could see every sting of envy as a compass needle pointing directly toward what your soul truly wants to create. Jung's classification of envy reveals a truth about the human condition that goes far beyond individual psychology. These 12 types are not merely clinical categories. They are maps of how the human psyche processes inequality, aspiration, and comparison. What makes Jung's work revolutionary is not only his identification of these patterns, but his recognition that envy, when consciously engaged, becomes one of the most powerful forces for self-discovery and personal transformation. Each type of envy encodes precise information about our deepest values, our repressed desires, and the limiting beliefs that shape our sense of what is possible. The true genius of the Jungian system lies in acknowledging that envy cannot be eliminated. It can only be transformed. When we stop resisting or rationalizing it, and instead treat it as valuable information about our inner world, envy becomes an extraordinarily accurate tool for growth. Jung understood something modern psychology is only beginning to rediscover. Our negative emotions are not flaws to be corrected, but coded messages from our deepest wisdom. Envy, specifically, is not an enemy, but an emotional compass pointing us toward what we must cultivate, create, or reclaim in our lives. The 12 types he identified are not prisons, but keys. Each, when fully understood and consciously processed, not only frees us from the suffering of envy, but reconnects us with authentic aspects of ourselves that we once denied or suppressed. This understanding transforms not only our relationship with our own envious impulses, but also the way we perceive envy in others. Instead of condemning it as a moral failure, we can recognize it for what it truly is: information about unspoken desires, undeveloped potential, and hidden dimensions of the human soul asking for recognition. And so the invitation that emerges from this understanding is profoundly liberating. Instead of feeling shame for our envious impulses, we can thank them for showing us who we truly wish to become. Reflect for a moment on which of the 12 types you most clearly recognize in your own experience, and consider what that particular form of envy might be trying to reveal about your most authentic desires. Have you noticed that the calmest people you know share something in common? It's not that they live perfect lives, nor that they've never made mistakes. It's something entirely different. And once you uncover it, the way you perceive your own existence will change forever. There are individuals who walk through life with an unusual serenity. They don't flinch when someone brings up their past. They don't avert their gaze when an uncomfortable subject arises. They don't rush to change the topic when faced with direct questions. It's as though they carry within them an invisible strength that shields them from external storms. Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, dedicated years to exploring this phenomenon. What he found was revolutionary. There is a direct link between inner transparency and peace of mind. But it is not the kind of transparency we normally imagine. It is not about confessing every mistake to the entire world. It is something far deeper and infinitely more powerful. What you are about to discover will not only help you understand why some people live in constant anxiety, but will also reveal the path toward a stillness you once thought impossible to attain. Most of us live a double life without realizing it. There is the version we present to the world, and the version we know in private. This split is not accidental. It is the product of countless small choices we make to protect ourselves, to be accepted, to avoid judgment. Jung observed that this ongoing division between our public self and our hidden self creates a permanent psychological tension. It is like living on constant alert, preparing to defend a version of ourselves that deep down we know is not completely authentic. Think about the last time someone asked you a direct personal question. Did you feel that little stab of nervousness, that fraction of a second, when your mind quickly evaluated what was safe to reveal and what needed to be concealed? That is exactly what we are talking about. But here is the fascinating part. There are people who simply don't experience this tension. When asked direct questions, they answer naturally. When faced with uncomfortable situations, they remain grounded. Not because they are flawless, but because they have achieved something Jung considered one of the highest expressions of psychological maturity. These people have learned to live without masks. They have found a way to integrate who they are in private with who they are in public. And the result is an inner peace that feels almost otherworldly to the rest of us. The question is, how did they get there? The answer is not what you might expect. It is not about erasing every secret from your life, nor about becoming an open book that shares every detail with anyone who asks. It is about something far more subtle and transformative: inner congruence. Jung described this congruence as the state in which our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions align. When this alignment exists, there is no need to remember which version of ourselves we presented in each situation. There are no contradictions to defend, no stories to keep consistent, no masks to adjust depending on the audience. Imagine for a moment how your life would feel if you no longer wasted mental energy remembering what you told each person. If you didn't have to constantly filter your words to maintain an image, if you could answer any question from your truth without fearing judgment. And yet, here comes the first resistance. Our mind quickly objects. Don't we need some privacy? Isn't it natural to have different sides depending on the social context? And yes, that is true. This is not about eliminating privacy or becoming socially inappropriate. It is about dissolving the inner fragmentation, the exhausting sense of being multiple selves that often clash with each other. That feeling of living on alert, making sure our different versions don't collide. Those who have reached this inner congruence have reconciled with all parts of themselves. They have integrated their shadows, accepted their imperfections, processed their past mistakes. This doesn't mean they lack boundaries about what they share publicly, but it does mean there is no inner war between who they are and who they appear to be. The path to this state is not easy because it requires facing precisely what we have been avoiding. Wholeness demands a level of personal honesty that can feel terrifying at first, but the rewards are extraordinary. When you have nothing to hide from yourself, when you have made peace with your entire story, when you have integrated every aspect of your personality, you discover an inner freedom most people will never know. And here comes the most astonishing part. What Jung discovered is that most of us are fighting against phantoms. We believe that if others knew our most intimate thoughts, our past mistakes, our deepest insecurities, they would reject us instantly. But this belief rests on a fundamental illusion. The illusion is that we are uniquely flawed. We think our inner struggles, our embarrassing thoughts, our moments of weakness are proof that we are broken in ways others are not. The truth is completely the opposite. Jung observed that the very aspects we feel most ashamed of are paradoxically the most universally human. Every person has selfish thoughts. Every person has acted from fear. Every person has made choices they regret. Every person knows the sting of insecurity. The difference between those who live in peace and those who live in constant anxiety is not the absence of these human experiences, but their relationship with them. Those at peace have cultivated what Jung called radical acceptance of the human condition. This acceptance is not passive resignation, nor self-indulgence. It is the recognition that being human means being imperfect, making mistakes, harboring contradictory thoughts, and experiencing difficult emotions. It is the understanding that these are not flaws in the system, but essential features of existence. When we embrace this acceptance, something extraordinary occurs. We stop wasting energy battling ourselves. The mental energy once spent maintaining multiple identities, remembering what we hid from whom, or constantly policing our words and actions, is suddenly released. But here lies a trap to avoid. Some misinterpret this teaching as permission to justify destructive behaviors or abandon all personal ethics. That is the exact opposite of Jung's message. Radical acceptance does not mean approving of everything we have done or thought. It means acknowledging that all of it belongs to our story, and from that honesty, we can make more conscious and authentic choices moving forward. It is the difference between a self-compassion that keeps us stuck and a self-compassion that sets us free to grow, between denial that fragments us and honesty that integrates us. And here is where Jung's perspective takes a surprising turn. The inner peace we seek does not come from perfecting our external image, but from something far more radical, becoming uninterested in our own internal judgment. Think of it this way. How much mental energy do you spend each day judging yourself? How many inner trials do you hold where you play both prosecutor and defense attorney? How often do you replay your words, analyzing whether they were appropriate, acceptable, or correct? Those who have attained inner peace have achieved what seems impossible. They have given up the role of judge over themselves, not because they have decided everything is fine, but because they have grasped something essential about the nature of inner judgment. Jung observed that our inner critic is not truly ours. It is a collage of external voices we have internalized over time. Our parents, our teachers, our peers, society at large. That judge we mistake for our own conscience is often nothing more than borrowed expectations disguised as our own. And when we begin to see this clearly, something remarkable happens. We start to separate authentic values from inherited pressures. We begin to distinguish our conscious choices from our automatic reactions rooted in fear of disapproval. This discernment opens the door to a freedom few ever experience, the freedom to shape our ethical standards based on our own genuine understanding of what nourishes life, rather than on what others might think of us. Here lies the most powerful transformation. When we stop endlessly judging ourselves, we also stop assuming others are judging us. Projection works both ways. If we are merciless with ourselves, we will assume everyone else is too. But once we make peace with our full humanity, once we stop being our own inner enemy, we awaken into something Jung described as the natural state of a mature soul, a benevolent curiosity toward ourselves and toward others. Instead of living defensively, protecting an image, we begin to live exploratively, genuinely interested in understanding and in growing. Now take a moment to reflect. Which aspects of yourself have you been judging most harshly? Can you recognize where those voices truly come from? The path toward inner peace does not demand years of therapy, endless techniques, or complicated rituals that only a few can master. Carl Jung suggested that the beginning of this transformation can be surprisingly direct, something that anyone, regardless of background or circumstance, can practice. He called this the unveiling of transparency, a process through which we gradually remove the unnecessary layers that keep us distant from our own essence. The journey starts not with a grand revolution, but with a small act of honesty, one that can quietly yet powerfully alter the direction of our lives. It begins when you identify even a single place in your life where you feel you are wearing a mask, where you are playing a role that does not fully reflect who you truly are. This recognition may come in the workplace, where you nod along to conversations and ideas that you do not actually understand, hoping no one will notice. It may come in social circles, where you shape your words to please others, adding opinions that do not belong to you, fearing rejection if you express what you truly think. Or it may arise in the silence of your own mind, where you deny feelings or thoughts that disturb you, pushing them aside as though they should not exist. The first step Jung emphasized is to recognize these inconsistencies, to see them clearly for what they are, without rushing to judgment or condemnation. The process does not demand that you suddenly change all of your habits. Instead, it asks you to cultivate awareness of where fragmentation exists within you. Simply by noticing the places where your words and your essence are not aligned, you begin the work of integration. The second step follows naturally, practicing small, deliberate acts of authenticity. Imagine being in a meeting, and instead of pretending to understand, you say, "I'm not entirely sure I grasp that. Could you explain it another way?" Or in a conversation with friends, instead of echoing an opinion that doesn't resonate, you respond with, "I actually see it differently." What emerges from these small moments is often not rejection, but relief. People sense something real in you, something trustworthy. Instead of the judgment you feared, you may encounter respect and an unspoken appreciation. Authenticity disarms pretense, even in others. Many people do not consciously recognize it, but they relax in the presence of someone who is real. They feel a subtle invitation to lower their own masks. This is why Jung described authenticity not as a selfish act, but as a gift to those around us. The third step, however, demands deeper courage. It is the act of making peace with your own inner imperfections. Every human being has thoughts they label as unacceptable: anger, jealousy, desires they do not understand, fears they would rather not acknowledge. The typical reaction is to fight these thoughts, to bury them, or to feel ashamed for even experiencing them. Jung taught that instead of judgment, we can meet these inner movements with curiosity. When you notice such a thought, you might simply reflect, "How interesting that my mind has produced this. What is it trying to express? What fear or need is beneath it?" This gentle observation shifts the relationship you have with yourself. Instead of being your own critic, you become your own witness. Instead of fighting yourself, you begin to listen. And from that listening grows compassion. And from that compassion grows the freedom to live more authentically. The fourth step expands this practice into your closest relationships. Choose the people who matter most to you, those whose presence you value, and begin to share something you would normally keep hidden. It does not need to be something dramatic. It could be an insecurity, a dream you fear others might laugh at, a perspective you rarely voice because it feels too vulnerable. The purpose is not careless exposure, but a gradual removal of unnecessary barriers. In doing this, you give others the chance to truly know you, not the performance you maintain. And the surprising discovery is that relationships deepen, not because you hide your flaws, but because you reveal your truth. As this practice grows, its effects extend far beyond what you first imagined. Anxiety, for example, begins to lose its grip. Most of the anxiety people carry is not about life itself, but about the strain of maintaining multiple versions of themselves. It is the anxiety of keeping stories straight, of remembering which mask was worn in which situation, of fearing the day when one truth collides with another. When you commit to transparency, this particular burden dissolves. You no longer wake up with that uneasy sense that there is something you must guard or protect. You no longer panic when someone recalls an old conversation, wondering, which version of me did I show then? Instead, you develop what Jung described as a relaxed presence. This presence allows you to be fully engaged in the moment. No part of your mind is wasted on image maintenance. You can listen deeply, respond honestly, and exist with a simplicity that others find magnetic. People notice it, often without knowing why, and they begin to relax in your company. Your authenticity becomes an unspoken permission for them to put down their own defenses. Perhaps the greatest transformation, however, occurs in your relationship with fear. When you have made peace with yourself, when you have accepted the totality of your humanity, the fear of being exposed loses its power. With nothing left to hide, a vast reservoir of hidden anxiety disappears. You realize that you can face any question, any conversation, any situation, not because you have rehearsed the perfect answers, but because you no longer need them. You can answer from your truth in the present, from the depth of your lived experience. This creates a form of confidence, radically different from the fragile confidence that comes from achievement or image. It is a confidence rooted in wholeness, the certainty that you can face reality as it is, including your own imperfections. Decisions become simpler because they are no longer filtered through the question of which version of yourself they must serve. Instead, you ask only, which choice reflects who I truly am? Which path aligns with the direction my soul wishes to move? And something remarkable happens. Far from losing respect, people actually respect you more. They seek your advice, not because you appear flawless, but precisely because you are not pretending. They trust you, not because you have all the answers, but because you do not fake the ones you do not have. In a world addicted to performance, sincerity is rare and therefore invaluable. Reflect for a moment. How would your life change if you no longer wasted energy maintaining masks? What doors would open if you trusted that your authenticity had more value than any illusion of perfection? Imagine living without that constant inner conflict, without the exhausting war between who you are and who you believe you should be. Jung understood that much of our suffering does not come from the external world, but from this silent inner war. And peace begins the moment we choose to end it. This peace is not the sterile calm of someone who never makes mistakes. It is the vibrant serenity of someone who has accepted every chapter of their human story. The light and the shadow, the strength and the weakness. From this acceptance comes freedom. It is not an invitation to complacency, but the only true starting point for growth. For when you are no longer busy rejecting parts of yourself, you can consciously choose the direction of your development. The person who integrates their inner world is not perfect, but is authentic. They are not free of difficult emotions, but they do not waste themselves in endless battles against them. They do not inspire by their flawlessness, but by their courage to be fully human. In a culture that demands carefully edited versions of ourselves, choosing authenticity is a revolutionary act, and here lies the essential difference. You can either perform your life or live it. You can continue pouring your energy into maintaining appearances, or you can walk the path of deep peace that arises from integration. The invitation stands before you now. The first step is as simple as allowing yourself to be who you are, here and now, without explanations or apologies. From that place of authenticity, you can decide consciously who you wish to become. Peace is waiting on the other side of your honesty. And if these words made you see yourself and your relationships in a different light, let them stay with you. Jung's reminder is clear. Only when we stop pretending do we truly begin to live. If this reflection made you think differently about life and relationships, subscribe to the channel for more profound personal development content, and let us know in the comments if you enjoyed this perspective from Carl Jung about inner peace. What if I told you that somewhere deep inside you exists a power so profound, so quietly transformative, that once you awaken it, no heartbreak, rejection, or fear could ever take it away from you? This is not about wishful thinking or shallow affirmations. It's about the kind of self-love that Carl Jung discovered when he began exploring the most hidden layers of the human psyche. A kind of love that isn't built on ego, but on truth. Today, I want to take you there, to that sacred place within yourself where real strength is born. Because this isn't about repeating, "I am enough," in front of the mirror, while secretly doubting every word. It's about rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself from the ground up, the way you speak to your soul, the way you stand by yourself when life tests you, the way you stop abandoning who you are just to be accepted. Jung once said that every human being carries an entire universe within, a vast inner cosmos he called the unconscious. Most people think of the unconscious as a dusty basement of forgotten memories, but Jung saw it differently. He saw it as a living, breathing force, a silent voice that's always trying to guide you back to your truth. Have you ever felt that strange pull in your gut before making a big decision? That whisper that says, "Don't go there," or the sudden spark that fills you with excitement when you imagine a dream you've buried for too long? That's your unconscious speaking. It speaks through intuition, through emotion, through dreams, through everything you've been taught to ignore. And here's the secret. When you stop listening to it, you disconnect from your essence. You lose your compass. But when you finally begin to pay attention, everything changes. You start to build a self-love that doesn't crumble when others withdraw their affection. You begin to feel grounded in your own skin. Picture this. You're in a relationship that seems fine from the outside. Words of affection, promises of love. Yet deep down, something feels off. You feel yourself shrinking. You stop laughing the way you used to. Your dreams get quieter. Or maybe at work, you take on everything because you can't say no, afraid to disappoint, afraid to be seen as less. Jung would tell you, this is not random. This is your unconscious screaming for alignment. That discomfort you feel, it's not weakness. It's your soul trying to tell you that you've been betraying yourself for too long. Those knots in your chest, that quiet exhaustion, they are signals, not flaws. And the moment you start reading those signals, instead of suppressing them, you begin to heal. Jung called one of his most profound discoveries the shadow. It's the part of you you've buried, your anger, your jealousy, your fear, your sadness. The emotions you've been told are bad or unacceptable. But here's the truth. What you hide doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark. The shadow is the version of you that only wants one thing: to be acknowledged. Maybe you feel envy when someone succeeds. It's not that you're bad, it's that your shadow contains a repressed desire to shine too, but you've never allowed yourself to. Or maybe you get furious when someone ignores you, because deep inside, your shadow still fears being invisible. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your unhealed self asking to be seen. And when you stop fighting it and instead bring it into the light, something incredible happens. You stop fighting yourself. Take a deep breath right now. Ask yourself quietly, what in my life feels heavy? What part of me have I been refusing to look at? Don't try to fix it. Just notice it. Because this moment, this awareness, is where real transformation begins. Jung believed that self-love isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. And wholeness means embracing both your brilliance and your brokenness. Think of the times you let people cross your boundaries because you were afraid of losing them. Think of the times you kept silent, even when your heart screamed, no. Every one of those moments is your shadow calling out for your attention. But Jung teaches us that healing begins when you start to take that power back, when you honor your own inner voice. The next time you feel that quiet resistance inside you, say it out loud, even if your voice shakes. No, I can't do that today. It may sound small, but to your unconscious, it means everything. It says, I exist. I matter. Jung also spoke of projections, the way we unconsciously see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. When someone fascinates you or triggers you, it's rarely about them. It's about you. You might admire someone's confidence without realizing that what attracts you is your own unclaimed strength. Or maybe you dislike someone for being arrogant, not noticing that part of you wishes you had the same boldness to speak your truth. Every emotion you project onto others is a mirror showing you another piece of your soul. That's what true self-love looks like, taking responsibility for your inner world. It's realizing that no one else can heal you, validate you, or save you. You must become your own healer, your own guide, your own anchor. And sometimes that healing doesn't come in silence, but in chaos. Have you ever noticed how life tends to fall apart right before something inside you awakens? The arguments, the endings, the confusion. They're not punishment. Jung would say they're the language of the unconscious. The storm is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to cleanse you. Chaos is the fire that burns away the false layers so your real self can emerge. When everything feels like it's collapsing, ask yourself, what truth is this chaos trying to show me? Write it down. Don't censor it. Jung used a practice called active imagination, a dialogue between the conscious mind and the unconscious. Try it. Let your inner voice speak freely, without fear. You'll be amazed by what surfaces, by the wisdom you already carry within. So far, we've discovered that self-love isn't something given by others. It's something you build through awareness. By listening to your unconscious, facing your shadow, and embracing your projections, you begin to feel whole again. But there's one final step Jung insisted on: the art of letting go. You cannot fill a cup that's already full. And if your life is overflowing with people, routines, or fears that no longer align with who you are, how can you make room for what truly nourishes you? Think about it. How many times have you stayed in situations that drained you because you were afraid of change? How many times have you clung to something that had already ended? Jung believed that these attachments are not just about fear. They're the unconscious telling you, you deserve more. Individuation, Jung's term for becoming your true self, is the sacred journey of releasing everything that isn't authentically you. Imagine your life as a closet packed with clothes that no longer fit. You keep them out of habit, out of nostalgia, out of guilt. But deep down, you know they're not yours anymore. Letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. Take another deep breath. Think of one thing, one relationship, one belief that's been weighing on you. Now imagine what your life would feel like if you released it. That lightness, that quiet sense of peace, that's the soul remembering its natural state. Sometimes we think that holding on means strength, but in truth, the greatest strength lies in surrender. Every time you let go of what no longer serves you, you reclaim a piece of your power. And as you do, life begins to align with your true essence. You start attracting people, situations, and opportunities that reflect your worth instead of your wounds. So, if you've made it this far, know this: something inside you is awakening. The same force that Jung spent his life studying, the union of shadow and light, is now stirring within you. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. And once you truly see that, nothing and no one will ever have the power to take your light away again. But Jung teaches us something profound, that your energy is sacred. It is the invisible thread that sustains your peace, your dreams, and your very existence. It is not something to be scattered carelessly or given to anyone who demands it. Protecting your energy is not selfishness. It is a declaration of self-respect, an act of love toward your own soul. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you are saying yes to your inner light. So, the next time someone asks you for something that makes you uneasy, pause before responding. You can simply say, "I'll think about it and get back to you." It's gentle, yet powerful. It's not a rejection if you're not ready to say no, but it gives you space. Space to listen to your inner voice instead of reacting automatically. Jung would say that in that pause, you are beginning a dialogue with your unconscious, a sacred moment where the deeper part of you begins to speak, guiding you toward what truly serves your soul. Try it this week. Notice how different it feels when you give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to check in with your truth before giving away your time or your energy. Small actions like these plant the seeds of deep self-love. Now let's talk about relationships, the most powerful mirrors we encounter. Jung believed that every person we attract reflects something within us. The people we choose to keep close are living symbols of our inner world. If you are surrounded by those who support you, who celebrate you, who help you grow, it's because something inside you already honors your own worth. But if your life feels surrounded by conflict, criticism, or uncertainty, it's not punishment, it's a message. Your unconscious is asking you to look inward, to bring awareness to the parts of yourself that are still asking for healing. Many people stay in relationships that no longer nurture them simply because they fear loneliness. But Jung would say that loneliness often appears not because we lack others, but because we've lost connection with our true self. So how do you know when it's time to let go? Jung would whisper, listen to your intuition. Listen to your body. If being with someone leaves you feeling small, anxious, or emotionally drained, that's your soul's way of saying, this isn't for you. It's not misfortune or coincidence. It's your inner wisdom guiding you toward freedom. And that's where the magic begins. When you release what no longer nourishes you, the universe notices. It starts to align itself with your new frequency. When you choose yourself, when you honor your own boundaries, everything around you begins to transform. Take a moment now. Think of one relationship that feels heavy. Ask yourself quietly, does this person help me become more of who I am, or do they make me hide? Don't rush to answer. Just allow the question to sit in your heart. Because self-love that cannot be broken is built on the courage to walk away from what dims your light and move toward what allows it to shine. Now let's move to something just as important. Dreams. Jung believed our dreams, both the ones that come at night and the ones we hold in our hearts, are direct messages from the unconscious. They are not random fantasies. They are the soul's way of reminding us why we are here. Have you ever longed for something deeply, to create, to travel, to begin again, but abandoned it because of fear or others' opinions? When we silence those dreams, we are saying no to the essence of who we are. And every no to your essence quietly erodes your self-worth. So tonight, before you sleep, try this small ritual. Write down the question. What desire of mine have I forgotten? Don't judge the answer. Don't analyze it. Just write whatever surfaces. Jung used to see dreams, whether nocturnal or waking, as doorways to the unconscious. They reveal the parts of ourselves that still want to live. Let this practice reconnect you with that spark that once made your heart feel alive. These small acts are sacred. They are how you remember who you truly are. And when you remember, your energy begins to shift. You start attracting people who match your light, situations that resonate with your truth. Jung observed this in many of his patients, that once they aligned with their authentic selves, their external world reorganized itself as if the universe were responding to their courage. If these words stir something in you, share them with someone who might need to hear them. A friend, a relative, a colleague. Because messages like this create a ripple effect. They awaken others to the same truth, that real love begins with oneself. And remember, Jung didn't just teach us to let go of what hurts. He taught us to integrate every part of who we are. The light, the shadow, the dreams, the fears. True self-love isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. Imagine your life as a great puzzle. Some pieces are radiant. Your laughter, your talents, your kindness. Others are darker. Your doubts, your anger, your grief. But Jung believed that you cannot complete the picture if you reject the darker pieces. Integration means accepting every part of your being, even the ones that scare you. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been rejecting? Maybe it's the fear of failure, the sadness you've hidden, or the anger you've never expressed. You don't have to fix it, just recognize it. Because when you acknowledge it without judgment, it begins to lose its grip on you. It transforms from a source of pain into a source of power. Jung called this the gold in the shadow, the hidden potential that lies within the parts we try to hide. Now let's return to relationships once more, because this is where the lesson becomes practical. The people who enter your life are reflections of your inner state. If your relationships are filled with love and peace, it's because you have cultivated that within yourself. But if you find yourself surrounded by criticism, conflict, or confusion, it's not a curse, it's an opportunity. Something within you is asking to be integrated. Here's a practice Jung often encouraged. The next time someone frustrates you, instead of reacting, ask yourself, what in this situation reflects something within me? Write it down. Sit with it. The answer might surprise you. These reflections, uncomfortable as they are, help you reclaim pieces of your power that you once projected onto others. Every time you bring awareness to yourself, instead of blame, you strengthen your self-love. You build inner peace that no one can take away. And then comes synchronicity, one of Jung's most beautiful ideas. It's the mysterious alignment of events that seem too meaningful to be chance. When you release what drains you, life begins to flow in miraculous ways. You meet the right person at the right moment. The right opportunity appears just when you needed it. It's not coincidence. It's life mirroring your inner transformation. But to see these signs, you must trust yourself. And trust begins with love, with integrating your light and your shadow, your courage and your fear. So take another deep breath. Feel how everything we've talked about, energy, relationships, dreams, shadows, all point back to the same truth, that when you honor yourself, the universe honors you in return. If this resonates with you, imagine the ripple effect it could create if more people lived this way, aware, integrated, full of love instead of fear. And finally, return once more to your dreams, those quiet desires that refuse to die. Jung saw them as the compass of your soul. Ask yourself, what did I once want before the world convinced me it wasn't possible? What would I do if I weren't afraid? Write it down tonight. Let your heart answer honestly. You don't need a plan, just the courage to listen. Because every great transformation begins there, with a single act of remembering who you truly are. Just reconnect with that spark. Then, take one small step toward it this week. Draw something, read about that dream, talk to someone who lives it. Tell me in the comments what you chose. Jung would say you're listening to yourself, that deeper part of you that knows exactly who you are. So, what does self-love that no one can break look like? It's waking up, knowing you are enough. Not because someone tells you so, but because you feel it. It's choosing relationships that lift you up, not the ones that drain you. It's chasing your dreams, even if it's just one small step at a time. That's what Jung wanted for you, an authentic life. Let's take one final pause. Breathe deeply. Imagine your life filled with that kind of self-love. How would you feel? What would you change today? Don't answer out loud, just feel it, because this isn't the end, it's the beginning. And if this moved something inside you, subscribe and turn on the bell. Let's close with a quick reflection. Jung taught us that self-love is not an external gift, but an inner journey. Listen to your unconscious. Integrate your shadow. Let go of what no longer serves you, and follow your dreams. Every step makes you stronger, more yourself. And the message I want you to take with you is this: stop searching outside for what you already have within. You are enough. You always have been. Now live it. Before I go, one last invitation. Share this video with someone who needs this message. Leave a comment about what resonated with you the most, or what you're going to change today. Your words inspire others and help this message reach farther. If you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe. Together, we can build a community where we all dare to truly love ourselves. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of this. See you in the next video. Remember, change begins with you, and the world needs your light. I'll be waiting. Have you ever felt it, even if you deny it? That strange moment when your heart starts beating faster, as if it knows something before your mind can grasp it. A vague suspicion, a tightness in your chest, a quiet whisper in the background of your thoughts telling you something isn't right. You're standing there, trying to hold on, while the person who once looked at you like you were everything now seems distant, unreachable, emotionally absent. They used to smile when they saw you. They used to seek you out, to need you, or at least it felt that way. But now, without any clear explanation, they've started to fade away. They no longer text you the same way. They no longer listen with real attention. Their eyes no longer hold the same warmth when they look at you. But you refuse to accept it. You create stories to justify their behavior. You invent reasons, excuses, imaginary circumstances. You lie to yourself, because to face the truth would mean demolishing the emotional castle you've built, brick by brick, out of pure illusion. And somewhere deep inside you, inside all of us, there's a part that clings to the sweet lie rather than face the violent truth. You're not here by accident. There's something in you that already knows. It senses it. It's tired of pretending not to notice. Yes, maybe you're surrounded by people, but how many of them are really with you? How many stay when you're no longer useful, when you're no longer fixing their problems, when you're not feeding their ego or filling their emptiness? There are people who don't love you, not the way you think, not the way you need. They tolerate you. They use you. They manipulate you with carefully rehearsed smiles. They keep you close, but always one step behind, because they're not interested in your essence. What they want is your energy, your attention, your emotional availability. And the worst part? They know exactly what they're doing. They know what buttons to press to keep you hooked. They know how to sound broken, just enough for you to feel like you have to fix them. And you, with that limitless heart, you do it, at the expense of your peace, your identity, your emotional well-being. Have you ever asked yourself why some people disappear just when you need them the most? Why they only show up when they're hurting, but vanish when it's your soul that's breaking? Have you stopped to reflect on how often you give and how little you receive in return? That emotional scale is always out of balance, but you keep trying to steady it, even if it means sacrificing yourself completely. Why? What are you really looking for? Love? Acceptance? Some long-lost validation you never received in childhood? Maybe a subconscious promise that if you just give enough, someone will finally choose to stay. Carl Jung said it clearly. People do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to descend, without fear, into the basement of your consciousness, into that dark corner where you've been storing all the "it's fine" and maybe they're just busy excuses. We're going to turn the light on in that uncomfortable space where a painful truth has been waiting to be acknowledged. That person you care so deeply about doesn't feel the same way. They never did. What they wanted wasn't you. It was the way you made them feel. the reflection of themselves they saw in your eyes. What they loved was what they could take from you. And the most painful part? You knew it. From the very beginning, you sensed it. But you looked away. Because the human mind is a master illusionist. It hides red flags behind hope. It turns warning signs into background noise. Accepting that someone has been using you is not only humiliating, it's emotionally shattering. It forces you to confront your vulnerability, your deep need for love, your emotional dependence. And that's where the real battle begins, between what you want to believe and what's actually happening, between the fantasy you've been feeding and the reality that's been draining you. This isn't going to be a comfortable video. You're not here to have your ego stroked. You're here because part of you is exhausted. Part of you needs answers. You want to understand why you let them treat you this way. You want to learn how to finally recognize those people who don't value you, who don't love you, who only use you, not by mistake, but by design, as a psychological pattern, as a way of being. This isn't just one sad story. It's a mirror. And what you're going to see might not be pleasant, but it will be necessary. So, get ready. We're going to explore the fractures in the human soul. We're going to analyze the behaviors of people who pretend to care, who use words as bait, who know exactly when to show up and when to disappear, just to keep you emotionally dependent. And we're going to do it through the lens of deep psychology, through the darkness that Jung understood so well. Because if you don't confront your shadow, you'll spend your life trapped in it. This is not just another video. This is a confrontation. With them, yes, but above all, with yourself. Let's continue exactly where we left off. We're going to go even deeper. No circles, no repetition, no soft edges. Let's talk about something silent, yet deeply powerful, something very few dare to name. Emotional debt. Yes, emotional debt. Because when someone uses you, and you don't see it, or worse, you see it and allow it, you fall into a toxic dynamic that rarely speaks its name, but always leaves a permanent scar. You begin to feel like you owe them something, a debt you never signed for, never agreed to, and yet you carry it every day. Why? Because they made you believe you had to, that walking away meant you were selfish, that setting boundaries made you a bad person, that if you didn't save them, you were heartless. They conditioned you, slowly, skillfully, with guilty silences, with gentle manipulation disguised as love, with words like, "You're all I have," or "I'd be nothing without you." They turned you into their safety net, their unofficial therapist, their emotional partner without commitment, their crutch. But they never gave you the same in return. They never matched your effort. They never sat down to truly ask, "And how are you, really?" Because it was never about you. It never was. And here's where one of the most sinister parts of this dynamic shows up. False gratitude. That empty kind of thankfulness used to keep you close. They say, "Thank you for always being there," but they do nothing to protect your well-being. They say, "I don't know what I'd do without you," but never make sure you have a space to lean on too. Gratitude becomes emotional blackmail. And you, with your heart full of pure intentions, fall into the trap again and again. Because a part of you needs that role of savior, even if you're bleeding inside. Carl Jung once spoke of the archetype of the wounded healer, a figure who dedicates themselves to healing others, all while neglecting their own wounds. And maybe, without even realizing it, that's exactly where you find yourself right now. Fixing, supporting, holding others together. even as the cracks inside you continue to widen. Because the more you give, the further they drift away. The more you surrender, the more they demand. The harder you try to be seen as valuable, the more invisible and replaceable you feel. And here comes one of life's cruelest paradoxes: the fear of losing someone who never truly loved you. How can that be? How can you cry over someone who has given you nothing tangible, nothing real, beyond the illusion that maybe someday they might? It's because you're not really mourning them. You're grieving the version of them that existed only in your mind. You're mourning the promises that were never fulfilled, all the scenarios you built up in your imagination, all the hopes, the what-ifs, the dreams that never came to be, and never will. So how do you begin to free yourself? The key lies in recognizing the difference between presence and connection. Because someone can physically be next to you every day and still not be truly with you in any meaningful sense. And the opposite is also true. Someone can leave your life and still treat you with more respect than the one who shares your bed each night. Some people don't stay because of love. They stay because it's convenient, because you're useful, because you've unknowingly become their free therapist, their emotional outlet, their personal audience, their dumping ground for unresolved frustrations. And if you don't put a stop to it, this turns into a pattern, an emotional addiction cleverly disguised as loyalty. You start justifying the unjustifiable. You begin to normalize pain, to romanticize waiting, to convince yourself that true love must mean sacrifice. But let me be very clear. What you're experiencing is not love. It's a one-sided dependency, a parasitic relationship where you keep giving, and they just keep taking. And if you're still holding on to hope, if you're still telling yourself that one day they'll wake up, see your worth, and finally say, "I appreciate you," then please stop. That day will not come. Because someone who feeds off you, who drains your energy for their own survival, will never be the one to teach you how to walk away. They won't let you go, not because they love you, but because losing you would mean confronting the emptiness they carry inside. And they're not ready to face that. They'd rather have you continue to carry their darkness while they pretend to be your light. Now we enter deeper waters. The idea of idealization as a form of emotional escapism. You don't idealize someone who uses you because they're truly exceptional. You do it because you need something to hold on to. You turn them into your compass, your anchor, your reason to keep going. Because if you let go, you're forced to confront the gaping void of your own loneliness. And that hurts more than any breakup ever could. But you can't keep running from yourself. You can't keep holding up someone who would never stop to catch you if you were the one falling. You can't keep calling it fate when it's clearly a toxic loop. Want to know if someone really loves you or just needs you? Watch how they react when you stop giving them what they want, when you say no, when you set a boundary. That's when the truth comes out. Because real love isn't tested when everything's easy. It's revealed when you're no longer useful to them. That's when the mask falls. That's when you see whether there was genuine affection or just convenience. And now, the hardest part to admit. Maybe that person you're so deeply tied to isn't even fully aware of the damage they're causing. Because there's something more dangerous than conscious manipulation, emotional unconsciousness. People who've never done the inner work, who carry unresolved trauma, who act out old patterns on autopilot. And you become the collateral damage of their inner war. But that still doesn't excuse it. Understanding isn't the same as excusing. You can have compassion for someone's pain and still walk away because your peace matters more than any shared history. You weren't born to be someone's unfinished project. You weren't born to be a backup plan. You weren't born to be an emotional sponge for someone else's chaos. And if you've made it this far, if you're still here, still listening, it's because something inside you is already awakening. That part of you that no longer wants to be useful, but wants to be loved. Truly loved. Without conditions, without manipulation, without emotional debt. So now the question becomes painfully simple. How many more chances will you give someone who doesn't love you? How many more times will you allow someone who doesn't value you to take up space in your life? How much longer will you postpone the bravest act of all? Walking away when you know you're not being appreciated. You don't need to scream. You don't need revenge. You just need to do the one thing they fear the most. Disappear. Because when you're gone, they can no longer use you. When you walk away, they lose their hold on you. And when you finally close that door, even if it breaks your heart, you begin to take your power back. And that's where we leave it for now. But what happens next? That's entirely up to you. Because if you've stayed until the end, if you haven't clicked away, if you didn't tune out with a, "Yeah, I already knew this" excuse, then let me tell you something that no one else will. You are no longer the same person you were just minutes ago. Because now you have something you didn't have before. Awareness. Awareness of the hidden game. The silent power plays. The emotional language that speaks louder than any empty promise. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. That strange feeling you've carried with you. The sense that something was always off. It wasn't your imagination. That discomfort, that unease that would sneak up on you in their presence, the weight in your chest, the tension in your body. It was all real. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't paranoia. It was your intuition. It was your soul, desperately trying to speak, to warn you, to shake you awake. But you silenced it. You forced it into the shadows because you didn't want to upset someone who deep down never truly cared for you. You tolerated the discomfort because you convinced yourself that it was normal, that love was supposed to feel like that, confusing, painful, heavy. But now, you're not asleep anymore. The fog is lifting. The illusion is crumbling. You start to see the cracks, the imbalance, the silent manipulation, the dependency disguised as love. You start to see that it was never love. It was need. A need to be needed. A desire to be chosen. A hunger for attention that was never fully satisfied. And now, finally, you understand. You weren't free. You were convenient. You weren't cherished. You were used. You were a placeholder, a temporary comfort, a distraction. And the most powerful realization, you know that you can leave, that you deserve to leave. Because real self-love isn't a motivational quote taped to your mirror. It's not a bubble bath or soft music playing in the background. Real self-love is hard. It's painful. It's making the decision to walk away from someone who never truly saw you, who only came around when they were lonely and vanished the moment you needed them. And right here, right now, is where everything begins to change. Because when you find the courage to disappear from the life of someone who only saw you as useful, you don't become the villain. You become someone who finally realized that their worth isn't measured by how much they are needed, but by how much they choose not to give away to people who never earned it. You're not running away. You're being reborn. You're shedding the version of yourself that settled for less, that accepted crumbs and mistook them for care. The version of you that thought closeness meant love, that being around was enough, even if your soul was starving. And yes, it hurts. It burns. You can feel it in your chest. Your throat tightens, just thinking about the goodbye. The thought of walking away feels like losing a part of yourself. But listen, that is your sign. That pain, it's the signal. Because no one should hurt you that deeply. No one should have that much control over your peace, especially from a distance. No one should be allowed to disturb your mind, your heart, your stability, the way they do. There are people who don't wish you harm, but still bring harm to your life. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Enough to close the door. Enough to disappear. Enough to finally, truly choose yourself. Yes, it might be difficult at first. Yes, the guilt may whisper. Yes, the urge to explain yourself might feel overwhelming. But hear me clearly, do not explain your peace. Do not justify your boundaries. Do not apologize for saving yourself. The person who failed to appreciate you when you were present doesn't deserve even a single word when you walk away. So if any part of this message has stirred something in you, if it has hit a nerve, cracked something open, brought something to the surface that you've been trying to bury, I want you to do just one thing, a simple act of declaration, a silent revolution. Leave this phrase in the comments: I am not your shelter if you are my storm. Nothing more. Just that. Anyone who reads it will understand. They'll know you've awakened too. And if this video spoke to you in a way no one else ever has, if you felt that finally someone found the words for what you've been carrying silently inside, then subscribe, but not out of obligation. Subscribe because here, in this chaotic corner of emotional turmoil, we're not done. Not even close. We're going to keep digging. We're going to keep pulling uncomfortable truths out from under the rug where they've been buried for too long. We're going to keep tearing off the masks, one by one, until what's left is nothing but the raw, unfiltered reality. And we're going to keep choosing something that very few have the courage to face: the truth, even when it hurts. Share this. Share it with the one who needs it most. With the person who's been stuck for years in a one-sided relationship, convincing themselves that crumbs are enough. With the one still waiting for a call that's never going to come. With the soul who wakes up every morning hoping that this will be the day they're finally seen, finally chosen. Be the spark. Be the switch that turns on the light in the darkest corner of someone else's shadow. And now I'm leaving. But not like everyone else. Not with a lukewarm goodbye. Not with a cookie-cutter phrase that sounds nice, but means nothing. I'm leaving with silence. The kind of silence that only arrives after everything's been said. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, but confronts. The silence that forces you to think, to feel, to remember. I'm leaving with that echo that won't shut off. That voice in your head that keeps playing even after you've closed this video. Because once you know your worth, you simply can't stay where you're not valued. So close your eyes, breathe, and disappear until the next truth finds you.
Letting go is not just a decision. It is a profound shift that ripples through your entire being. It is not a simple act, but a transformation that takes root in the depths of your consciousness. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the hidden recesses of the human psyche, uncovering that releasing something is not merely about moving on. It is an inner revolution that reshapes the mind from within. Think about it. Throughout life, we accumulate relationships, habits, beliefs, and emotions that may no longer serve us. Yet, we cling to them out of fear, routine, or the illusion of control. Jung believed that this resistance doesn't just hold us back, it distances us from our true essence. It's like carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones, making each step harder on a path that requires lightness. The unconscious plays a crucial role in this process. It is the deep reservoir within us that stores unprocessed emotions, past experiences, and hidden wounds. Jung argued that when we ignore the inner voice warning us that something is off, we create internal tension. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of freeing stored energy, allowing our authentic self to emerge. Consider the times when you sensed that something was draining you, but held on anyway. Maybe it was a relationship that looked perfect on the surface, but left you feeling empty, or a job that felt secure, but stripped you of joy. What happened when you finally walked away? That immediate sense of relief, of weight being lifted, is just the beginning. However, letting go is not simply about leaving something behind. According to Jung, it initiates an internal restructuring. This shift doesn't happen overnight, as the unconscious operates through symbols, emotions, and dreams that take time to integrate. It's like a river that starts flowing again after being blocked. Once the barriers are removed, life begins to move in a more natural and aligned direction. But here's the real question. Why is it so difficult to let go? Jung's theory points to the concept of the shadow, the hidden part of ourselves that we avoid, suppress, or deny. This shadow may hold fears, guilt, insecurities, or even pride. We resist letting go not because of the thing itself, but because of what it forces us to confront within ourselves. For example, staying in an unhealthy relationship might not be about the other person, but about a fear of being alone or belief that you're not worthy of something better. These fears are not external. They stem from unexamined parts of your psyche. Letting go, in this sense, is not just an act of courage. It is an invitation to look inward, to face what is hidden, and to reclaim your power. Jung taught that the shadow does not disappear by being ignored. In fact, it grows stronger, manifesting in repeated patterns, relationships, and choices. True release requires acknowledging this hidden self, embracing it, and integrating it. It is not an easy journey, but it is the path to real growth. Once you face these suppressed aspects of yourself and release what no longer aligns with you, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your perception of the world transforms. It is as if life itself starts to synchronize with your inner truth, opening doors that once seemed shut. This is not magic. It is a natural result of being in harmony with your deepest self. And this is the key. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about trusting. Trusting that by releasing what no longer belongs to you, you are making room for something greater. It is an act of self-honor, an acknowledgement that you do not need to carry burdens that are not yours. When you choose to let go, you are not just freeing physical or emotional space. You're sending a powerful message to yourself. I am ready for something new. It is like opening a window in a room that had been closed for years, allowing fresh air to breathe life into the space. This seemingly simple act has a deep impact, transforming you at every level of your being. Carl Jung argued that the external world is merely a reflection of your inner reality. Everything you experience is, in large part, a projection of what lies within you. So, when you choose to let go, what you're actually doing is realigning that projection. You're allowing yourself to see the world through a new lens, shedding the distortions imposed by fear and insecurity. Have you ever wondered why certain people, situations, or relationships seem to drain you endlessly? Jung explained that this happens because those connections are not in harmony with your true self. Clinging to them means ignoring the signals from your unconscious, urging you to pay attention. But when you finally decide to release them, something shifts. It's as if you're closing a door that was keeping your energy trapped, allowing it to flow freely toward what truly matters. However, this process isn't always easy. Letting go can leave you with a sense of emptiness, a void that can be unsettling. That fear of emptiness is natural. We are conditioned to fill it with external distractions, people, possessions, routines. Yet, Jung taught that this void is not something to fear. On the contrary, it is a sacred space, an opening for something new to emerge. It is like a blank canvas, waiting to be painted with richer, more vibrant colors. Think back to the last time you had to release something significant, a relationship that no longer served you, a dream that once fueled you but no longer resonated. in those moments. It's easy to feel like you're losing something irreplaceable. But with time, you realize that what you gained was far more valuable: clarity, peace, and a renewed sense of purpose. Jung believed that this kind of transformation is never accidental. It is the outcome of deep, conscious inner work. Choosing to let go is engaging in a dialogue with your unconscious, confronting your shadows, and allowing them to surface. It can be challenging, but it is also profoundly liberating. As you release, you start to notice subtle yet significant changes in your surroundings. Relationships that once seemed essential fade away, making space for new, more authentic connections that align with who you are becoming. This isn't random. It's the law of synchronicity, one of Jung's most intriguing concepts. Synchronicity occurs when external events mirror your internal state, as if the universe is responding to your decision to live in alignment with your truth. A classic example is the phenomenon of new opportunities appearing once you let go of something that held you back. Maybe you meet someone who shares your values, land a job that fulfills you, or rediscover a long-lost passion. These experiences aren't coincidences. They are signs that you are in tune with yourself. Reaching this point takes courage. It means asking yourself difficult questions. What am I holding on to that no longer serves me? Why is it so hard to let go? What part of me is afraid to release it? These reflections not only deepen your self-awareness, but also pave the way for real transformation. Ultimately, releasing something isn't just about letting go. It's about making room for what truly resonates with your soul. It's a profound act of self-respect, a testament to your trust in life's natural rhythm, and a declaration of your willingness to evolve. Living from this place of truth shifts everything. The universe responds in ways beyond logic, revealing new opportunities and unseen pathways. There's a deep power in surrendering. It is an acknowledgement that not everything is meant to be controlled, because life itself knows how to reorganize and realign. When we stop clinging to what no longer serves us, as Carl Jung suggested, we not only transform our present, but also unlock suppressed energies that reconnect us to the core of our psyche, our authenticity. The unconscious, a vast and mysterious realm that Jung devoted his life to understanding, communicates through symbols, emotions, and dreams. When you choose to let go of something weighing you down, you send a direct signal to your unconscious. You are ready to grow. But transformation rarely occurs without resistance. Often our ego, the part of us that craves stability and control, resists the idea of release. This is where deep self-exploration becomes essential. Jung encouraged us to confront our shadow, the hidden aspect of ourselves that we rather ignore. When we release attachments, we inevitably come face to face with this shadow. You might realize that your attachment to an unfulfilling relationship stems from a fear of loneliness, or that your reluctance to change careers is tied to a deep need for external validation. These realizations are rarely comfortable, but they are necessary. By acknowledging them, you begin to integrate them, and within that integration lies your true strength. Something remarkable happens when we finally let go. The fears that once seemed overwhelming begin to dissolve. This is because releasing what no longer belongs to us also frees the emotional energy trapped in that attachment. That energy, once stagnant, now becomes the force that fuels our intuition, creativity, and ability to make decisions aligned with our true essence. Jung believed that this release of energy was crucial for connecting with the self, the deepest, most complete version of who we are. As we shed the layers of conditioning and societal expectations, we move closer to a state of wholeness. But how do we know if we're on the right path? According to Jung, the answer lies in synchronicity, the phenomenon where external events align meaningfully with our inner world. These are not mere coincidences. They are signs that we are in harmony with life's greater flow. Perhaps you've thought of someone only to receive a message from them moments later. Maybe you finally walked away from a toxic situation and suddenly new, uplifting connections enter your life. These experiences are not random. They reflect your internal alignment. However, this journey is not without its challenges. Letting go often leads to periods of uncertainty where you question whether you made the right choice. This is natural. Change is always accompanied by a transition, a space where the old no longer exists, but the new is yet to fully arrive. But this space is not empty. It is fertile ground for growth. Jung described this process as alchemical, Just as ancient alchemists sought to transform lead into gold, we transform our wounds and limitations into wisdom and personal power when we release what no longer serves us. This transformation takes time, as deep change never happens overnight. But with each step forward, you move closer to a life of authenticity and fulfillment. As you experience the benefits of letting go, you begin to notice that it doesn't just change your relationship with yourself. It also reshapes your connections with others. The people who once drained your energy fade away, making room for relationships that align with your truth. Life doesn't become perfect, but it does become real. And in that authenticity, you discover a peace that cannot be bought, forced, or faked, only lived. You realize that control is not a prerequisite for security. Instead, you learn to trust life, understanding that chaos is not inherently negative, but rather a catalyst for transformation. Jung believed that chaos precedes order, so instead of resisting change, you begin to embrace it. No matter how unsettling it may seem, every shift is guiding you towards something greater. When you adopt this mindset, you naturally attract abundance, peace, and opportunities, not because you're chasing them, but because your energy has shifted. You are no longer trapped in cycles of fear and attachment. Instead, you move through life with confidence, openness, and authenticity, and that energy is magnetic to the universe. As you align with your true self, an extraordinary shift occurs. Your perception of reality transforms. What once seemed chaotic, confusing, or painful now begins to reveal its deeper meaning. Jung referred to this as awakening to the wholeness of a psyche. Letting go of what no longer resonates with you not only creates space for new, but also allows the most profound aspects of your being to emerge with clarity. This is a moment of transformation, almost mystical in nature. Suddenly, opportunities arise at precisely the right time, the right people cross your path, and the answers you once sought externally begin to surface from within. This is not mere coincidence. It is a natural outcome of aligning with your truth. Jung described this state as a harmonious balance between the conscious and the unconscious, where both work together seamlessly. However, this journey is not without its trials. Along the way, you may face doubts and feel tempted to retreat into the familiar, the comfortable. The ego, that part of you that fears losing control, may whisper that letting go too quickly is risky, that perhaps you should hold on just a little longer. This is where true strength comes into play. Jung believed that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it and move forward despite it. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you completely released everything that holds you back. Think of the space you would create, not only in your external world, but also in your mind and heart. That newfound space would fill with clarity, inspiration, and boundless potential. It would feel as though, by surrendering, you are reconnecting with the infinite source of creativity and power within you. Letting go also has a profound effect on relationships. Jung suggested that our connections with others serve as mirrors of our inner world. If you cling to relationships that do not serve you, it may be a reflection of unhealed wounds, perhaps a lack of self-love or fear of being alone. But when you make the choice to release those connections, you are not just freeing yourself from emotional burdens. You are sending a powerful message to the universe that you are ready for deeper, more meaningful bonds. The relationships that enter your life after you let go tend to carry a different energy. They are lighter, more fulfilling, and based on reciprocity rather than dependence. These connections do not ask you to change who you are to fit in. Instead, they inspire you to be more fully yourself. Something else happens when you let go. You begin to reconnect with your dreams. Those dreams that you had set aside, dismissed as unrealistic or abandoned because life got in the way, suddenly resurface. By shedding the weight of what no longer serves you, you regain the courage and energy to envision what you truly desire, and more importantly, to take action toward it. Jung emphasized that personal transformation is not a final destination, but an ongoing process. Each time you release something that no longer aligns with you, you take another step toward wholeness. That does not mean the path is linear. There will be moments of uncertainty, setbacks, even pain. But each of these moments serves a purpose: to teach you something new about yourself, to help you integrate the parts of you that have long been hidden. In this process, self-compassion is essential. To be kind to yourself means accepting that you do not have all the answers, understanding that mistakes are part of growth, and acknowledging that it is okay to feel fear or sadness. These emotions are not signs of failure. They are proof that you are fully experiencing the human journey. By allowing yourself to feel them, you also give yourself permission to heal. The result of this deep inner work is a life that feels more authentic, more aligned with who you truly are. You no longer seek validation from the outside world because you have found acceptance within. You no longer feel the need to control every detail because you trust in the flow of life. And you no longer cling to what is not meant for you because you understand that what is truly yours will always find its way back to you. Carl Jung recognized that true freedom is not something we find outside ourselves, but rather a state we cultivate within. It emerges when we break free from the invisible chains of fear, guilt, and attachment, choosing instead to live with authenticity and trust. When you embrace this path, you don't just transform your own life, you influence the world around you. Every act of self-honesty sparks a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same and creating a wave of transformation that extends far beyond you. Living in alignment with your truth initiates a profound shift, not just internally, but in how you engage with the world. Jung believed that those who embrace their inner shadows and fully integrate their true essence develop a powerful presence, an energy that doesn't need words to be understood. This happens because by letting go, you stop battling yourself and resisting life. You begin to flow effortlessly, becoming someone who moves with confidence, inspires naturally, and acts from a place of deep truth. Think about this. Every time you hold on to something that no longer serves you, whether it's a relationship, a limiting belief, or a deep-seated fear, you are expending an enormous amount of energy. Instead of channeling that energy into creativity, joy, or new possibilities, it becomes trapped in maintaining what is already obsolete. The moment you release it, you reclaim that energy, allowing yourself to build a life that genuinely reflects your deepest values. Jung described this state as a return to wholeness. He believed that within each of us lies an infinite source of wisdom, a sacred connection to something greater. However, this connection is often buried beneath layers of conditioning acquired throughout life. The process of letting go gradually dissolves these layers, revealing your true self. In this state of clarity, you no longer live according to external expectations, but instead from the core of who you really are. That doesn't mean that releasing will make life effortless or that challenges will disappear. Difficulties will still arise, but your relationship with them will change. No longer will obstacles feel like enemies. Instead, they will become opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Jung suggested that what irritates us in others can actually serve as a mirror, offering a deeper understanding of ourselves. This perspective shift is one of the most profound gifts that come from letting go. One of the most beautiful transformations that occurs through release is the awakening of intuition, that quiet inner voice, so often drowned out by the noise of the external world, begins to grow stronger. It's as if clearing your internal space allows you to hear with greater clarity what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. This intuition becomes your compass, guiding you toward relationships, choices, and experiences that truly align with your purpose. With this deeper connection also comes an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the joyful moments, but also for the struggles that have shaped you. Jung believed that enlightenment is not achieved by imagining beams of light, but by bringing awareness to the darkness within. This idea encourages us to see our shadows, mistakes, and losses not as burdens, but as essential pieces of the puzzle that forms our life. Imagine, for instance, that you spent years in a relationship that made you question your worth. At the time, it might have felt like an unbearable weight, something that drained your energy and clouded your sense of self. But now, looking back, you can recognize how that experience shaped you. It taught you the value of setting boundaries, honoring your self-worth, and prioritizing your well-being. Letting go of that relationship was not just about creating space in your life. It was a catalyst for growth, a necessary step that prepared you for something greater. Jung also spoke of the importance of archetypes in this process. When you choose to release, you awaken and explore within the part of you that is willing to venture into the unknown with courage and curiosity. This inner explorer does not fear change. Instead, it welcomes transformation as an opportunity to uncover new aspects of the self and the world. By embracing this mindset, Fear dissolves into excitement, and uncertainty transforms into endless possibilities. But it's important to understand that letting go is not a single event. It is an ongoing practice, a daily commitment to examining what you are holding on to and questioning whether it still serves you. Sometimes, letting go means walking away from a relationship. Other times, it is about shedding a limiting belief, releasing an unhelpful habit, or shifting a perspective that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Every small act of release, no matter how insignificant it may seem, brings you closer to your truest self. The most powerful aspect of this process is that as you live with authenticity, you become a guiding light for others. Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And when you awaken, you unconsciously inspire those around you to do the same. This brings us to an essential question. What could you create if you let go of everything that no longer serves you? What relationships, projects, or dreams could you manifest if you stopped carrying the weight of the past? These questions are more than just food for thought. They are reminders of the limitless potential you hold within. Jung taught that real transformation does not happen outside of us, but deep within our psyche. When you release, you're not just breaking free from the past. You're opening yourself to a future filled with new opportunities. You are choosing to live from a place of trust, connection, and authenticity. And while this choice may seem simple, it carries the power to change everything. Ultimately, letting go is not just about freedom. It is an act of courage. It is the realization that you do not need to cling to anything that no longer aligns with your growth. True transformation begins within, by facing your shadows, integrating your emotions, and trusting in the unfolding of life. As you release, you are not only breaking the chains of the past, you are making space for the new, the meaningful, and the aligned to find their way to you. This journey is not always easy, but it is profoundly rewarding. It is a path toward wholeness, where every choice, every connection, and every experience resonates with your deepest truth. And in doing so, you do not just transform your own life. You inspire others to do the same. Because when you shine, you encourage those around you to step into their own light. So now, I invite you to reflect. What are you holding on to that no longer aligns with you? What could you gain if you had the courage to release it today? This is your moment. Within you lies everything you need to create a life that reflects your authenticity, your purpose, and your connection to the universe. And so, as you stand at this crossroads, remember, you have the power to create a life that aligns with your truth, your purpose, and your highest potential. Every step you take toward letting go is a step toward the life you were meant to live. Trust yourself, embrace the journey, and know that the universe is always guiding you towards something greater. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe and join this journey of transformation and self-discovery. Together, we rise, we evolve, and we create the lives we truly deserve. Your next chapter begins now.